What was so compelling about Jefferson, Adam, as a player, and how do you feel he can make an impact pretty early on as a Cyclone?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Jefferson has is he's got elite athleticism. You know, you're talking about a kid that started his collegiate career during COVID as a safety and, grew, 3 inches, put on about 25 pounds, and now all of a sudden is a complete different football player. And, I think anybody that has worked like that, and, I think all those guys that have been great defensive ends for us have this elite athleticism, this elite twitch, the ability to, really their first two steps create conflict. And I think Jefferson videotape shows that, but I think his journey has shown that too. And then you throw the human on top of that. It's like, man, this kid that has just persevered through a lot and got an incredible spirit, incredible family, culturally really fits who we are on top of it. So a great match for us in our program.
In revamping the offensive staff, except for Mauser, number one, what precipitated that, and number two, what are you hoping that this staff can, what kind of product they can put on the field this season?
Yeah, I don't even know if I look at it as a total revamping. I mean, obviously the bulk majority of people are still around. Kyle Kemp, Nate Schillhouse, Mouse. I think a little bit of it is just a little bit of realignment. You certainly look what we've done here is, over the course of the last 7 years, we've had phenomenal offense and the best offense in the history of this school over the course of 7 years. I think where we need to grow and would love to continue to grow is the consistency of who we would like to be and what we would like to be able to become. I just think overall, culturally in the whole program, there's a lot of things, and I would say I put a lot of this on my shoulders and nobody else, is, the ability for our program to have elite consistency of what we are day in and day out. I think the physical growth and development of our football team is critical, and really the cultural excellence that we have stood for at our best. And so I think just continuing to grow back into what we've been at our best is really important holistically, and that's not just offense, that's special teams, that's defense. It's really what we do and how we do everything that we do within our program. I think that's really important.
When you went to self-evaluate either during the season or after, what did you see, or what did you, diagnose as the reason for the inconsistency, and why was a change and a realignment the solution to that?
Well, I think the realignment piece probably was more, mutual probably in a lot of settings. I think you see all those guys have gone on and done great things, and they've done phenomenal things here. But I think as you looked at it, your realignment based on those value systems, not just on offense, but globally within our program. I think everything that has been restructured, consistency of what we do and how we do what we do, I think really important. The nice thing about being together, whether it's been the bulk load of us at the University of Toledo or Iowa State, we know what the consistency of how we do what we do looks like. I think the area I talked about, with the physical development and the physical conditioning within our football program, we know what that looks like at its best. And I think the other piece of it is, the cultural piece of it, not just both on the field but off the field, what that looks like behind the scenes. And so I think anything we did to try to reevaluate myself first, and then globally everything that touches our program, really based on those three value systems, and just continue to align us to be the best we possibly can be moving ourselves forward.
From a schematic or X's and O's standpoint, is it going to look different?
Geez, I don't think so. I think schematically, again, it's not a scheme issue. I think when you look at what we've done and who we are, that's not the issue. You're a team that's, in the last 3 years, you've led the Big 12 in rushing offense. You've led the Big 12 in passing offense. And the reality, it's not a matter of scheme. It's a matter of how we do what we do and the consistency that we do it with. And, I think there's a lot of factors that lie into that. It's not one person. And a lot of it really rests on my shoulders of the demand of those consistencies, those cultural and physical developments, and then the cultural excellence that what we've stood for. So, I think when I look at the scheme aspect of it, obviously you're going to look at that, and we're doing a lot of that right now. But man, are you going to see us all of a sudden be something we're not? Absolutely not. I think we can do a lot of things better. I think we can be better, but I think most seasons you feel that way anyway. So, yeah, but great question.
Is Hunter number one quarterback going in, or is, and then I'll follow up to that, is JJ, he's here this spring, right?
He is.
Okay, how will that affect his progression also? But I guess first of all with Hunter.
Oh, I think as you would look at any season, I think college football in general, you start back over at square one. And I think certainly Hunter would have the foundational starting point because of his experience. But, man, I think when you look at our entire team, and I think that's the neat thing about this team in general, you lose a lot of those guys that have had 3 or 4 years of experience in this team, and you're a very – yes, more experienced than you were a year ago, but certainly still a very inexperienced team in a lot of ways. And I think the more inexperienced you are and the more probably not veteran you are, the more it's like, man, it's wide open. And I think that's kind of exciting for all of us across the board at all of our position groups right now is, man, there's a lot of competition. And, you look in that quarterback room, obviously there's a lot of positives from Hunter's season. Obviously there's a lot of areas he can continue to grow in. And, man, Rocco Beck got some really quality reps last year, and excited to see what his growth is. Ashton Cook played for us at times a little bit last year, got injured towards the midpoint of the season. Excited to see what he is, and then to be able to bring JJ in. So, and I think you can go through almost every position group on the team, and you feel like we probably are starting off with the most depth and the most competition that maybe we've had since I've been here. And I think that part's exciting because you're competing now with really good players. And, man, you look at the quarterback room, you also got a guy like Hunter that's had so much experience and some really positive things happen that's kind of leading that way. So, I would say he's going in leading the way, but there's going to be great competition from, man, today through the entire part of the offseason and until we get to the start of the season. So no different than any other position group on our team.
I know you guys were out on the road a lot over the last several weeks, but how much work can Ryan Clanton have with that current O-line group, and maybe what do you see him doing with that group at this point in the process?
I think the starting point in any new coach would be developing a relationship. And so I think the one thing I'll give Ryan a lot of credit is from day one, that's been a starting point. And, once you develop a relationship with a player, then you've got the ability to, be a great teacher and developer. And, I think the one thing, again, I'm excited about, and I've probably said this ad nauseum over the course of the last 2 years, but I'll firmly stand on this. There are elite players in the offensive line room. And, I think there's guys that I feel like have a chance to have as high of end of potential as anybody we've had since we've been here. And so, I think that it's not like Ryan's coming into a cupboard that's bare. It's a cupboard that's actually as probably as stock full as maybe any of the rooms that we've had. And, just really excited to see the continued growth. And, again, there's a group where you talk about the physical growth and development of that group continue to be a premium. And I think Ryan can have a great effect on that. You saw what he was able to do when you talk about the physical growth of some of the guys that he's mentored along the way. And then obviously as we continue to clean up what we want to do schematically, continuing to, allow those guys to be their best. And I think that part's really exciting for everybody involved, especially when you feel like I do, that there's a lot of talent in that room to be really successful.
And then a lot of the recruits that ended up in this class mentioned the Storm program as one of the big factors that actually led them here. Can you get into that a little bit and kind of the role Justice has with that?
Well, I think, again, that kind of goes into the cultural excellence of our football program. And, for me, this has never been, and again, probably frustrating at times, is I don't only see my role of winning and losing football games. I see my role of developing 18 to 22-year-old young men to men. And I think really what the Storm program has been is an evolution of putting these thoughts in action, or thoughts and processes into true action. How do we bring 18-year-old young man, and how do we make sure that 18-year-old young man leads to a 22-year-old man? In terms of, accountability in life, who you are, what you stand for, how do you prepare to get a job? How do you get a job? Man, how do you leave our program 3 or 4 years from now and you're struggling in life, and can you come back here and are we still going to help you? I think all those things are what this place has stood for, what I've wanted it to stand for, and I think Justice has been a guy that's come on board, and again, part of his life at Bowling Green, he was playing that role with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 4 years, won a Super Bowl, saw it at the highest action, and, felt like this was the place he wanted to serve, and has been a part of our program now for the last year, and, really kind of gives the players somebody in their life that literally has zero to do with their playing time. It's really, his thought process and actions are to set up the process and roles of how do we serve our kids the absolute best every single day. So it's probably the best way to explain what his role is in our football program.
With Ryan, what was the process of identifying him as the guy that you wanted to hire? Obviously, you've seen his units up close a couple times.
Yeah, I think, for me, I got to really meet Ryan personally through really doing our summer camps, honestly. I think that was one thing that to kind of get a personal feeling on who he was and maybe even see him in action coaching a little bit. Doing our summer camps kind of gave us a little bit of insight into what he was about and what he stood for. And, that was a lengthy process. I will be honest with you. I think it's taken us a long time to purposely kind of make sure we found the right people that we felt fit us. I think knowing exactly what we were looking for, and as coaches either moved on, we saw it as an opportunity to grow and get better. And how do we really try to identify what each area looked like? And I think we were able to talk to a multitude of different people, but there was no question at the end of it, Ryan was the right guy for us. Him and his wife, what he's about, what he stands for. I think the relationship piece of it with his players was probably the most impressive piece. Talking to even some of his former players that are out there playing, and then having the opportunity to sit down and talk to him as not only just an offensive line coach. You're talking to a guy that was the offensive coordinator, that really can see the whole picture of things as well. And you're talking to staff. Coach Pauly was an offensive coordinator prior to coming here. Obviously, Coach Langs was a head football coach, and then you're talking about, obviously Coach Clanton as an offensive coordinator. So you got a group that's got a multitude of experiences of game planning and kind of being great teachers. And so I think all those things were really important. But that was kind of the final straw. So.
What is Nate showing you in his time on your staff, but not only then, even maybe going back to being a savvy and productive quarterback as a player, that made it apparent the time was right for him to lead an offense, not just a room or two?
Yeah, I think for Nate's strengths have shown from day one is, again, at least alignment who we are culturally. I think, Nate's understanding that it's not always about the end result, it's about how we get to the end result, and it's about developing the human being. It's about, winning with relationships, both when you're a position coach and then even in a sense of leadership. It's creating those relationships amongst your staff and that unity amongst your staff. I think Nate has tackled that early on and has done a great job of, being on the forefront of helping put this staff together, which it's been really fun to work with him and kind of see his leadership. But then I think on the other end of things, I think when you talk about a guy that's been in the moments, and he's been the guy with the ball in his hands and the development both of that position and understanding, what that position looks like and feels like, I felt really important as we continued on to build the staff, that maybe home for Nate was to be able to coach the quarterbacks and kind of lead from the quarterback position. So, I think we're really excited about the starting point of it, and, be a great growth opportunity and somebody I feel really confident about who he is and what he stands for.
Is Nate going to be calling plays?
Nate will be calling plays, absolutely.
How does that education process go for a guy who hasn't done it? Obviously, he played quarterback. I'm sure that helps. But
yeah.
As a coach.
Yeah, I feel like I've been down this road. Man, this will be the fourth time of doing that. You had Jason Candle kind of going through that as a first-time play caller when we were at Toledo, and obviously Tommy doing that, and then Joel was doing that at times for us in 18 with myself. And I think probably at least one of the positive pieces I feel like, especially from an offensive standpoint, is I've been that guy, and I think there at least is a growth journey through that. But, again, when you have such a competitive young team, one of the nice things that you're able to do in practice is you're able to mimic some of the game-like situations. You get so much competition from spring practice to fall camp. I think you can put those play callers in a situation to be able to grow and learn too, because that's a part of a growth process. And again, I think Nate would tell you, as we set out to hire a staff, really important for us to get guys that have been in that position too. You certainly got guys in terms of Ryan Clanton, who's called plays. You certainly have Jordan Langs, who's called plays, and then Noah Pauly, who's called plays. So I think that it's always a team approach, and I know I've always said that here offensively. We've always been a great team approach. So I feel really confident in that. And then even at the quarterback spot, obviously you have Coach Waters, who's still on staff, and another guy that's been with us the entire time, and a guy that really understands the quarterback position and who we've been and who we are. And then Kyle, that we're real fortunate right now what we've got in terms of staff around Coach Shieldhouse. So I feel really confident in that aspect of it, and we can create the competition, give them those experiences before the season starts.
When you were talking about Nate, you said that you were impressed, that I don't know whether that was your word or not, but how he was as a player. He's got experience.
Sure.
as doing it as a player. I mean, does Hunter or whoever ends up being the quarterback, do you want your starting quarterback to be from the image of Nate Shieldhouse when Shieldhouse was running all over the place at Illinois?
Well, I don't know about the running piece of it, but what made Nate great was what's made the great quarterbacks here great. Poise, elite character, elite humans, and always putting the team above self. And that was who Nate was. And, it's funny because I almost was going to coach Nate, his last 2 years at Illinois. When Coach Beckman had went to Toledo, he was the starting quarterback those 2 years. So, if I would not have become the head coach, potentially going to Illinois as the offensive coordinator. So I always kind of followed Nate's career as the quarterback coach, and I think, or as the quarterback. But I think what you saw from Nate Nate was so successful as a player, and it's funny because you get around those teammates, it's almost the same thing. You hear him talk about Brock, and you hear him talk about Kyle Kemp. It's not what they did, it's how they did what they did. And so I think whoever is the quarterback, we've been at our best when those value systems have shone brightly on our football team.
You hired a on-field special teams coach.
Right.
Can you go through that thought process?
Yeah, I can, just because I've had them both, literally, here, Toledo, we've done it a million different ways. And, we've been elite, at Toledo, we were incredible. There's been at times here we've been really good, and then there's times here we've been inconsistent. And I think, as I sat back and felt like where we have been inconsistent, a lack of consistency on special teams. And there's areas we've been very good, but we're so young right now. And again, development is the root of success for us. Is as I look at where we need to be and where I would like us to be, putting one person that solely is responsible for that development and accountability to the development of our special teams, I thought was really important. And I love having our coaches, and they'll continue to be, all of our coaches will continue to be involved with special teams. And I felt like at the time when we went to that, we had so many good coaches that were ready for those roles to be up in front of the team and to be able to do that. And I think sometimes you realize it takes a lot away from them too. And maybe you're asking a lot of those guys, and now all of a sudden that development gets spread rather than singular focus. And so I just feel like right now the best thing for that group, for us to grow the most and become our best, is to have somebody within our full-time staff that's on the field and that's accountable for the singular focus of our special teams play. So we're really excited about that. Like I said, I think we'll still have very similar approaches to what we do. More so how we do what we do is really what I'm after there, and really excited about Jordan taking over. Again, a guy that's been the special teams coordinator, he's been a head football coach, been a defensive coordinator in his time, really understands, that focus and what I'm looking for in terms of the development of that group.
I don't think we've talked to you since everything with Brock has happened over the last couple of months. It didn't end the way anybody wanted it to, but what what did you think just seeing the things that he's been able to do over the last 2 months, and then to hear some of his teammates, I mean, some of the best in the game, to say some of the things they have about him? What's that felt like for you?
I think for me, it's just pride. I mean, you're so proud of who he is, and the funny thing is, it's the same guy. It's the same guy that you guys saw in 18. It's the same story in 18 as what it is right now. It's the same guy in terms of, I mean, could you have been any prouder even in the second half when the kid's got a torn arm and he's going into the game, and man, there was no emotion. He did what was best for the team, and the character to be able to do that. I mean, to me, we see the 8 wins, and man, you're excited and you're so proud because there's justification of, man, when you do it the right way and you get put in the moment. Some guys are ready for the moment and they take advantage of it, and some guys don't. And Brock has always took advantage of it because of who he is. And it's not even just, man, this elite this or elite that, or like running all over now. It's, man, he prepares. He's the same guy every day. He knows who he is. He knows what he stands for. And to hear his teammates talk about him, even to hear Fred Warner talk about him on Sunday after the game, and like, man, it's really powerful. And so I think you're so grateful to have led with a young man like that in our program. You're so grateful that that's who's representing Iowa State football right now on the national stage. And man, we're beyond proud of him. We're beyond grateful for him, and really excited to see. I think he's got a great future ahead of him, and I think he's really excited about that too.
How are you guys health-wise? Is there anybody missing winter that might miss spring?
Yeah, miss spring. I think we'll see. We had some guys as the season ended up. Man, they got some things cleaned up, but I do think, honestly, we may start spring practice. Now, we pushed it back a week, and I did just because new offensive staff. I'd like to give us as much time in the weight room. Physical development, I still think, is such critical to our future success right now that I wanted to maximize all those things. We're so young. So I think that'll allow us to maybe be at full strength by the time we get there. But I think we'll see, and I'll probably know better of that, but I really feel confident that at least from a physical standpoint, we've been in some off seasons where it's like, dang, we're not going to get these guys. I think Jirel would be the one guy that I would tell you right now probably won't be ready for the start of spring practice, and we'll kind of just see where he is. But I don't think he will not be doing things. I just don't know if he'll be full contact by the time spring practice comes around.
What are the initial impressions from you, and I guess what you've heard from the guys about the strength and conditioning staff?
Yeah, I at some point I'll be excited for you guys to ask that question, because I think any coach can get up here and tell you, man, they're really fired up. I think the biggest thing is for them, again, back to things where we have been our best, and that development down there, physical development. We're a young team, so man, really sinking into the physical growth and development of our team was really important to whoever we brought in. And I think it a guy like Reed, who's been here, who the competition piece of it, I think there's a lot of competition right now. I think there's a lot of emphasis on the physical growth, both down in the weight room and certainly in our nutrition program. And boy, I feel like there's just a really good energy about what's going on there right now. And it's also the third week, or just coming to an end, so it's always easy early. I think we'll figure out a little bit more here as we get into the next couple of weeks of what's our team's commitment, and man, what are the strides that we are making. And that's not an evolution that's going to happen quick. We'll see what it is and where we're at over time a little bit.
Do you anticipate doing your spring practices on the road again, like what you did last year?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question, Jared. We know when we're going to start and kind of get going. Part of that was a little bit of, our inability to be able to practice here, But I think the great thing is, man, we got our practice field back. We've got our game field back. I would like to have a spring game, this year, so whether we're somewhere or back here, I would like to do that. Just again, we're so young. I'd like to put our team in a position to, man, get out and play and get our fans, be able to be in that environment before we get to the season. I thought that helped us last year. So whether we travel or we open up, at least, that final opportunity for a spring game, I think those are things we're kind of debating right now, but hopefully get there.
Your schedule came out yesterday. I don't expect you to react to the entire thing, but the 2 new teams that are joining the Big 12, or 2 of them are on there. What do you think of the new additions, and what will that be like to get a couple new foes on the slate?
Well, I think it's always great to, man, at least from our end of it, go to different places. You're going to 3 new places that we'll travel to this year. You travel to Ohio University, you travel to Cincinnati, you travel to BYU. And but when you talk about, man, you talk about all 3 of those teams too. You got a team that played in the MAC championship. You got a team that obviously played in the championship game in the American Conference. And then, at the end of it, you got a team that, man, is really, really impressive and probably a really hard place to play. But I think as the competitor, man, you want to play great people, and we're going to get that and have to go on the road and play in some of those environments. So, this conference is as good as anybody, and it's like, man, I don't think it got not any weaker. I think it only got much stronger, and great challenge for us. But we'll have a lot of time to get ourselves ready to rock and roll. All right, guys, thank you.